I'll be posting some links to information about the fair use doctrine in the sidebar. Now, traditionally, our legal system has balanced the rights of the author to have control over her copyrighted materials against the rights of the public to use that material and to create new works with it. This balancing system is known as the fair use doctrine, and it weighs 4 factors in determining whether a given use of a copyrighted work falls under the fair use exemption. Let's see how these factors should be weighed in relationship to Nick's alleged infringement. Number 1. The purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of commercial nature or if it's for non-profit educational purposes. Nick used a small portion of a musical piece for non-commercial purpose. He didn't make a penny out of it, and this factor indicates that his usage was a fair use. Number 2, the nature of the copyrighted work. If the nature of the copyrighted work is to promote scholarship or present facts or news reporting, that is more likely to be considered fair use than if it's for entertainment, musical purposes, or creative purposes. The work that Nick used was musical, so this factor would count in favor of it being an infringement, since Nick copied from a musical work as opposed to purely informational work. Number 3, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relationship to the copyrighted work as a whole. In other words, how much of the work did he use, and did he use the most important part of the work? The piece of music that Nick used from the Carmina Burana was 1 minute and 48 seconds long, and the entire Carmina Burana is just over an hour long. Moreover, the piece that Nick used was not the famous portion of the Carmina Burana that everyone would recognize from the movies, the part that is used to build suspense. No, he used one of the more obscure parts of the Carmina Burana. So this would point to fair usage. He did not use a substantial portion at all, just a little tiny bit that probably very few people would even recognize. Number 4. The effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. In other words, did Nick's usage affect the ability of the publishers to sell their work? Did it cut into their sales? Now, if anyone believes that using a 2-minute recording of a relatively obscure portion of the Carmina Burana, 7.5 minutes into his video, with less than a few thousand people viewing his videos, is going to cost Shot Music any sales, well, they ought to be dragged off to the funny farms. Such a position is not credible. Nick didn't cost them 1 penny in sales, and so this factor, and this is probably the most important factor, would weigh in favor of counting this as fair usage. So 3 of the 4 factors point towards Nick's usage as falling under the fair use exemption, and only 1 factor counts toward copyright infringement. Clearly, Nick's use of this passage does not violate copyright law as traditionally understood and protected by the First Amendment, but it does violate the letter of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Now, the DMCA is a very long and complex piece of legislation, and unfortunately, it largely guts First Amendment protections given to us by the fair use doctrine. I can't imagine that this is what Congress intended to happen. It's more likely to be the result of an unintended consequences of Congress having its collective head up its posterior cavity. But Congress put YouTube in a position where it had to remove Nick's video in order for it to avoid lawsuit under the DMCA. Now, Google and YouTube could be a hero and look out for the First Amendment rights of its content providers by telling Shot Music to go jump in a lake. This would risk a lawsuit by Shot against Google and YouTube, but this lawsuit could eventually lead to the ruling that the DMCA should not be used as a hammer to shut down free speech rights. Or YouTube could take a conservative and muddling approach by taking down the video and suspending Nick's account temporarily. It's not unreasonable for them to punish Nick by giving him a temporary suspension to cool off and think about his transgression before starting up a new account. But no, YouTube didn't do this. They banned him permanently. Permanently. Until the end of time. Permanently. until the universe decays to cold, dying, subatomic particles due to the inevitable progression of entropy. Permanently, until I learn how to read a speech smoothly without tripping over my own tongue. Even convicted rapists and child molesters are given more consideration. They rarely get punishments longer than 10 to 20 years. They know that there will one day be an end to their punishment. But YouTube has seen fit to impose a punishment of longer duration than that given to a convicted pedophile. Now, it doesn't have to be this way. There is absolutely nothing in the DMCA or any other law, as far as I know, that says they must ban Nick permanently. And if YouTube says otherwise, they're just giving you some more male bovine solid waste emissions. I am not a lawyer, and when I say that the DMCA doesn't require YouTube to force a permanent ban against Nick, I would expect you to be bursting out in howls of laughter. But Wendy Seltzer is a lawyer and an expert on the subject. She has worked with the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and she founded the Chilling Effects Clearinghouse to study and combat legal threats to free speech on the Internet. I am putting a link to her blog entry in which she discusses a similar case where Harvard terminated network access for a repeat DMCA offender for a year, and you can find that link in the sidebar. She said that the DMCA does not require a year suspension, and a year's termination was in fact inappropriate. She implies that a short-term termination should be used as a learning opportunity for the infringer. So where do we go from here? How can we resolve this mess in a manner that is satisfying to all? And if we can't find a result that will satisfy all, what can we do to minimize the damage that this incident has done? Before answering that, I think we should examine the ramifications of what has happened due to YouTube's initial mistake in sending a letter to Nick saying that his account was closed for inappropriate content. First, YouTube shot itself in the foot. It made itself look incompetent at best. And it reinforces the belief that some people have that YouTube is siding with extremist Muslims by suppressing anti-jihadi videos. It doesn't matter whether or not this belief is accurate. What is important is that many people, rightly or wrongly, believe that YouTube is helping the extremists in their battle against the Western civilization. And YouTube's bumbling only reinforces that belief. I'm posting several links in the sidebar to show how this particular incident has fed that belief. Pay particular attention to the comments in response to Michelle Malkin's video. This video is featured both on Hot Air and on YouTube, and really you should look at the comments. It's not just a tiny thing. YouTube's bumbling has caused it to have bad press, and I suspect its image will only be further damaged if steps are not taken to remedy the situation. Second, this incident made it look like YouTube wants to silence a prominent atheist, possibly in the hopes that all atheists might somehow go away. After I've done some research into this, I am convinced that this is not the case. But it certainly had the appearance of that, and it's not surprising that someone who doesn't have all the facts would reach this conclusion. I have also seen people in the Muslim community complain that YouTube is trying to censor them as well. I am not familiar with the specifics of the incidents that have happened in their community, but I know they think that they've been treated unfairly. Now, maybe YouTube really is being just and fair in its treatment of everyone, but unfortunately the opaque and apparently arbitrary nature of their actions give the cynics ammunition to spread the view that YouTube wants to get rid of those who have unpopular views. Third, YouTube's initial bumbling of the Nick Gisburne affair has caused the Muslim community to come under suspicion of censorship. This suspicion was unwarranted, at least in this incident, but it is an inevitable result of YouTube's original letter in today's political climate. Fourth, it makes it look like YouTube enforces its rules in an arbitrary and capricious manner. For them to claim that they care so much about the enforcement of copyright laws that they will force Nick into permanent banishment over over an incident that falls well within traditional fair use guidelines is laughable in light of the flagrant copyright infringement that goes on here every day. I mean, just look at the most watched videos. Does YouTube really believe that people have obtained copyright permission to upload all that anime and music and TV shows? And for them to ban Nick forever over the use of 1 minute and 48 seconds of a clip of an obscure part of Carmina Burana, well, I just can't help but be reminded of Captain Renault in Casablanca, who was saying, "I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on here," as he's being handed his winnings in roulette. Fifth, a number of people, myself included, have uploaded the Islamic teachings video under the impression that it had been removed for inappropriate content, not for copyright violation. This may have been negligence on my part and the part of others, but we would never have thought that it violated copyright. After all, if it were a copyright violation, wouldn't Nick have been told that in the original letter that he was sent by YouTube? So I and others uploaded the video, and I've had my copy of the video taken down. I'm not sure if I have a strike against me now for copyright infringement or for inappropriate content. The little note in the icon next to the video that says it was removed states that it was removed for inappropriate content and not copyright. But the gods of YouTube probably think that I'm a copyright infringer. So now I probably have an unintended copyright infringement strike against me, based partly on my negligence and partly on YouTube's negligence. Now I know I never would have, and I doubt anyone else would have uploaded this video in protest had we been informed in the first place that it was being removed for copyright reasons. So what can be done about this situation? First, I hope that the heads of YouTube recognize that people are human and that they make mistakes. I hope that they did not fire the person who sent Nick the wrong notification. It would be much better to forgive their employee and to use this as a learning opportunity. And I hope they will extend the spirit of forgiveness to Nick. If Nick promises not to use copyrighted video or music without first obtaining written consent, then YouTube should let him reestablish an account after a 30-day suspension, with the time beginning from the date when it was last suspended. This would make Nick eligible to return on March 14th, and YouTube should be extending the same spirit of forgiveness to others who find themselves in a similar position to Nick. Second, YouTube can start to gain back a reputation of fair dealing if it grants an amnesty to those who have uploaded the Islamic teachings video under the mistaken impression that doing so is not infringing on anyone's copyright. This incident, promulgated by YouTube's mistake, should not count as a strike against the Gisburne supporters. Third, though the terms of use explicitly says that YouTube can terminate a repeat offender's account, it does not say that it is YouTube's policy to permanently, and I say permanently, ban those whose accounts have been terminated. Such a move, without an explicitly stated policy, makes it appear that YouTube's actions are arbitrary and punitive. If YouTube really wants to implement this policy, then they should put this policy in writing and implement it fairly and across the board, whether the violator is an unpopular YouTube user or a popular YouTube celebrity. Written notification will also prevent a situation in which this measure is sprung like a trap on someone who has no reason to believe that her actions are considered a crime worthy of a cyber death sentence. I advise those in charge of YouTube to watch Michelle Malkin's video, especially the part where she says that you do have an obligation to your users to be transparent and honest about your standards, to be responsive to your users, and to be consistent about it. She said it so well, and I think this is one of the few statements that nearly every YouTube user, no matter what their religious or political suasion, can agree on. YouTube can start by having a spokesperson make a video giving the full details of the Nick Gisburne affair. Then she can explain why Ann Angel 13's video was pulled for copyright infringement, even though clearly there was no copyright infringement involved. I will put a link in the sidebar to a copy of Van Angel 13's video that was deleted, and I defy any of you to tell me where the copyright infraction occurred. And I noticed that a large number of conservatives and Muslims are unhappy with YouTube for deleting videos in their accounts as well. I guess YouTube should stand up and take a bow, because anyone who can get these two groups to be saying the same thing deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. But really, a lot of YouTube's public relations problems could be solved with clear and consistent transparency. If YouTube implements these steps, then it will avoid making a mockery of Google's model. Don't be evil. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, Nick would give his blessings to YouTube and allow the use of the following clip in an advertising campaign.
I just want to come back because, you know, sorry to say this, but again, but I'm addicted to YouTube, so I need to be back.
This has been The Masked Analyst, under and in.